Narrator. Have you ever heard the sound of a soul breaking? It is not a loud, explosive noise. It is a deafening, terrifying silence, a vacuum that sucks the oxygen from the room, leaving you gasping for air, while the person who just destroyed you stands there, completely indifferent. What happens when the very lungs you breathed life into decide to suffocate you? What happens when the one you bled to save uses their newfound strength to plunge a dagger into your back? Wolf King Stories welcomes you to a descent into the darkest corners of betrayal and the breathtaking agony of a broken mate bond. Before we unravel this shocking tale of a rejected healer and the savage karma that follows, please hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Your subscription is the very lifeblood that fuels our passion, giving us the motivation to bring you more gripping, emotionally charged stories just like this one. Let us step into the cold, ruthless hierarchy of the Silver Moon Pack, a society that worships the sharpness of fangs and the brutality of physical conquest. Yet, the undeniable foundation of this pack's survival was not built on a blood-soaked battlefield, but upon the frail, heavily scarred shoulders of a single woman, Healer Evelyn. This is not your typical tale of fated romance. It is a harrowing, intimately painful portrait of martyrdom. For 5 grueling years, Evelyn did not just love Alpha Adrian. She slowly, deliberately dismantled herself to keep him whole. When a vile, rotting death curse gripped his body and dragged him toward the abyss, his fearsome, boasting warriors could do nothing but cower and watch. It was Evelyn who stepped into the darkness. She intentionally siphoned the venomous dark magic directly into her own veins, absorbing his excruciating physical agony and literally aging her own vibrant spirit to buy him another day, another breath. She was the unseen, uncredited architect of his greatness, meticulously polishing his heavy crown with the blood from her own exhausted hands. But absolute power breeds absolute amnesia, and gratitude is a fragile, fickle thing, easily crushed under the weight of blinding vanity. The ultimate betrayal does not happen in the quiet safety of shadows. It is executed under the blinding, ethereal glow of crystal chandeliers on the night of the Moon Festival Gala. Surrounded by shimmering gowns, radiant opulence, and the intoxicating hum of celebration, Alpha Adrian stands at the absolute zenith of the power Evelyn bought for him. And it is here, standing before the very people she bled to protect, that he delivers the fatal strike. He does not reach for her loyal, scarred hands. Instead, he proudly raises the delicate, unblemished hand of Victoria, a pureblood aristocrat draped in fine silk, whose only real merit is a royal title that desperately feeds Adrian's insatiable, fragile ego. Alpha Adrian. I, Alpha Adrian, publicly reject Evelyn as my fated mate and Luna. Her weak, scarred presence brings no honor to my throne. From this night forward, Lady Victoria shall wear the crown of the Silver Moon. Narrator. His voice booms through the hall, publicly rejecting Evelyn as his fated mate and claiming this aristocratic stranger as his new Luna. To forcefully sever a destined mate bond is not a mere emotional separation, it is a violent, agonizing amputation of the spirit itself. The invisible trauma rips through Evelyn's entire nervous system like shards of jagged glass. Yet, she does not fall to her knees, she does not scream. The profound, heartbreaking tragedy of her unseen sacrifice manifests entirely in a single, dark line of blood slowly trailing from the corner of her pale lips as the opulent hall suddenly plunges into a deathly, paralyzing silence. Narrator. As that single drop of blood hit the polished marble floor, it shattered the final illusion of her loyalty, severing the chains that had tethered her to a man entirely unworthy of her sacrifice. Evelyn did not weep, nor did she beg for the scraps of affection he was so eagerly tossing to Victoria. Instead, she turned her back on the Silver Moon Pack, walking away with a spine forged of steel and a heart rapidly turning to ice. The physical agony of the severed mate bond was catastrophic, an endless, violent tearing of her internal magic that would have easily killed a lesser wolf. She wandered deep into the untamed wilderness of the Blackwood Mountains, a treacherous territory where silver-spooned alphas dared not tread. Here she collapsed, letting the damp earth claim the remnants of the broken woman she had been. But the beautiful, terrifying tragedy of hitting absolute rock bottom is that there is nowhere left to go but up. Without Adrian's festering curse constantly draining her life force, an astonishing transformation began to take hold of her body. The dark, venomous magic she had dutifully siphoned for years began to metabolize, transmuting within her veins from a lethal poison into an unparalleled, raw power. Her scars, once jagged, weeping, and angry, faded into shimmering silver lines, a permanent testament to her survival rather than her servitude. The weary dullness in her eyes was replaced by a ferocious, ethereal luminescence. She was no longer just a pack healer. She was the wilderness incarnate, a sovereign of her own soul. Evelyn slowly built a sanctuary for the castaways, the broken, and the rejected, becoming a powerful enigma whispered about in neighboring territories. She became a mystical white wolf whose very presence commanded the profound reverence she was once denied by her own kind. She realized, with a deep and unshakable sense of peace, that her worth was never defined by the heavy crown she polished for a false king, but by the undeniable, life-giving magic that flowed freely from her own hands. Narrator. While Evelyn was blooming into the formidable sovereign she was always destined to be, the borrowed time Alpha Adrian had paraded, as his own inherent strength was violently expiring. The blinding arrogance of a usurper makes him entirely oblivious to the foundation holding up his throne, and Adrian had forgotten that his vitality was merely a loan he had just defaulted on. It started subtly, a noticeable tremor in his hands during a pack meeting, a chilling, foul-smelling sweat that soaked his silk sheets in the dead of night. The vile, rotting death curse had never truly been cured, it had only been held at bay by the tireless, agonizing dam of Evelyn's magic. With that protective barrier violently removed by his own arrogant hand, the black rot surged back with a vengeance. It crept up his veins like creeping ivy, turning his golden flesh a sickly, ashen gray, and sapping the immense physical strength he had always used to intimidate his rivals. Panic spread through the Silver Moon pack like a wildfire. The formidable warriors who had once sneered at Evelyn's quiet sacrifices now found themselves utterly defenseless as their invincible Alpha began to wither away before their very eyes. And what of Luna Victoria, the pureblood aristocrat chosen solely for her pedigree and unblemished skin? She recoiled in absolute horror. Her delicate sensibilities were not equipped for the gruesome, putrid reality of a dying mate. She could offer no magic, no solace, and certainly no sacrifice to save the man who had crowned her. When the remaining pack healers, inept and vastly inexperienced without Evelyn's guidance, admitted they were powerless to stop the rapid decay, Victoria abandoned him. She fled back to her aristocratic family, the very moment the stench of death overshadowed the glamour of her new royal title. Adrian was left utterly alone in his opulent, echoing chambers, staring blankly at the ceiling as the chilling realization finally pierced his colossal ego. He had foolishly traded the very woman who held his life in her scarred hands for an ornamental trophy that shattered at the first sign of a storm. Narrator. Desperation is a brutally honest mirror, and when Adrian finally looked into it, he saw not a conquering king, but a dying, hollow coward forced to crawl back to the savior he had so callously discarded. Dragging his decaying body through the unforgiving, jagged terrain of the Blackwood Mountains, the once mighty Alpha of the Silver Moon pack was reduced to a stumbling vagrant. The harrowing journey stripped away whatever pitiful remnants remained of his pride, leaving him gasping for breath and coughing up black blood at the imposing gates of Evelyn's thriving sanctuary. When he finally laid eyes upon her, the sheer shock nearly stopped his failing heart. She was breathtaking, radiant, powerfully composed, and utterly untouched by the misery that was rapidly consuming him. She sat upon an elevated throne woven of living briar and blooming moonflowers, looking down at him with eyes that held no anger, no sorrow, and no pity. There was only a chilling, absolute indifference. Adrian collapsed to his knees, the wet mud staining his royal garments, and wept openly. Alpha Adrian. Evelyn, please, I was a fool. Victoria abandoned me. The curse is killing me. Take me back. I'll make you Luna. Just save me. I beg you. Narrator. He choked out pathetic, breathless apologies, desperately pleading for forgiveness, begging for just a fraction of the mercy she had once given so freely. He offered her the title of Luna, promising to banish Victoria forever, swearing on the moon goddess that he had been blind, manipulated, and foolish. But apologies born strictly from the fear of death carry no weight in the scales of true justice. Evelyn did not rush to his side. She did not reach out to absorb his unbearable pain. She simply watched him with the detached, clinical curiosity of a scholar observing a dying insect. When she finally spoke, her voice was a melodic, devastating symphony of finality. She reminded him that a mate bond is a sacred equilibrium, not a parasitic feeding ground. He had severed the bond of his own free will, effectively burning the only bridge that could ever reach his salvation. She did not need to curse him, she only needed to leave him to the fatal consequences of his own choices. Narrator. Watching the man who had once been her entire universe writhe in the shadows of his own making, Evelyn finally exhaled the last lingering specters of her tragic past. There was no dramatic execution, no vengeful striking down of the villain to satisfy a bloodlust. The truest form of karma is often profoundly quiet, simply allowing a person to drown in the very toxic waters they chose to unleash upon others. Alpha Adrian perished not on a glorious, honorable battlefield, but in the cold dirt outside the sanctuary of the woman he threw away, completely broken, unmourned, and eventually erased from the proud annals of pack history. The Silver Moon Pack, devoid of strong leadership and rotting from the inside out, fractured and dissolved. They were swiftly absorbed by wiser, stronger neighboring territories, who fundamentally valued loyalty over superficial lineage. Evelyn stood on the precipice of her mountain, breathing in the crisp, untainted air of a beautiful future she had built entirely with her own two hands. Her deeply tragic yet triumphant story became a legend whispered among young pups and wise elders alike, a stark, unforgettable warning about the deadly price of taking ultimate devotion for granted. She was no longer just the tragic echo of a shattered soul. She was the resounding, earth-shaking roar of a spirit reborn. Thank you for walking through this exceptionally dark and beautiful journey with Wolf King Stories. If Evelyn's hard-fought triumph over betrayal resonated deeply with you, do not forget to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel. Your continuous, unwavering support is the driving force that allows us to delve into the minds of these complex characters, bringing their deepest pains and greatest victories to life. Until the next full moon rises, guard your hearts, know your immeasurable worth, and never let anyone turn your sacred sacrifices into their temporary stepping stones. The saga of Evelyn and Alpha Adrian serves as a powerful testament to the destructive nature of arrogance and the transformative power of self-worth. Evelyn's journey began in the agonizing depths of betrayal, cast aside by a man who valued superficial prestige over genuine, life-sustaining loyalty. However, instead of letting the rejection destroy her, she used the agony of the severed bond as a catalyst for her own rebirth. Unburdened by the parasitic drain of unreciprocated sacrifice, Evelyn evolved from an unrecognized healer into an autonomous sovereign, building a sanctuary not just for others, but for her own soul. Conversely, Adrian's demise was entirely self-inflicted. Blinded by ego, he failed to recognize that his strength was entirely dependent on the very woman he discarded. His tragic end in the dirt, begging for the mercy he once squandered, perfectly illustrates the inevitable collapse of any foundation built on exploitation and ingratitude. Ultimately, Evelyn's story is not merely one of revenge, but of profound reclamation. She did not need to destroy Adrian, she merely had to withdraw her protective grace and let the natural consequences of his actions run their course. It is a haunting yet deeply inspiring narrative that redefines the meaning of power, proving that true strength does not lie in a crown or a title, but in the untamed magic of recognizing one's own irreplaceable value and refusing to settle for anything less. The deepest lesson from this story is that your self-worth is inherent and must never be chained to how others treat you or validate you. Unreciprocated devotion is a slow poison. When you constantly pour your energy, love, and resources into individuals who only take without giving, you drain your own life force. True empowerment comes from recognizing when a bond has become parasitic, having the courage to walk away from toxic environments, and understanding that your greatest strength is unleashed only when you finally choose to save yourself. In today's demanding world, it is incredibly easy to fall into the trap of overgiving in relationships, friendships, or even workplaces that fail to appreciate your contributions. To apply Evelyn's wisdom, start by setting firm, unapologetic boundaries. Evaluate the Adrians in your life, people or environments that drain your energy while offering nothing in return. Have the courage to emotionally or physically distance yourself from these one-sided dynamics. Instead of seeking validation from those who take you for granted, redirect that energy inward. Invest in your own personal growth, mental health, and passions. Build your own metaphorical sanctuary. Remember that walking away from toxicity is never a failure. It is the necessary first step towards stepping into your true power and realizing your full potential. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic situation or relationship to find your true strength, just like Evelyn did? We would love to hear your thoughts. Please kindly share your perspective and experiences in the comments section below so our community can read, relate, and learn from one another. If you enjoyed this journey and want to help our community grow, please hit that subscribe button. Your continued support gives us the immense motivation we need to keep creating more empowering and captivating content for you.